Hi guys, and welcome back to a new video. You're going to have to bear with me today because I'm actually not very well, but I wanted to film this video because it's now October, so I kind of needed to wrap up my September reads. So that's what this video is going to be, a little wrap up as we do every month of all the books that I read in September. So let's just dive straight in. We read a little bit of a range of them. I've read half of the books that were on my September TBR, but my September has just been really manic, just with race season coming to an end with work, and just all the other things I had going on. I had a holiday and yeah, everything was a bit all over the place, but that's totally fine. Race season has now ended, so fingers crossed for more reads throughout the next 6-ish months that we have in the off season. Let's just dive straight into today's video and we'll go through all the books that I read in September and what I thought of them. So the first book that I read in the month of September was Bown by Frederick Backman, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. So I really enjoyed the story. It was very different from anything that I've really read before, just in terms of the storytelling aspect of it. So it's a literary fiction and it's based on a town, Bown, and they are very much into ice hockey. And when I say very much, I mean the whole town is essentially centred around ice hockey, and hockey almost becomes its own character in the book. The story is told through many different perspectives, which was really interesting. It doesn't really tell you whose perspective it's in. You have to just read it and then you just understand once you go through the book. So it is very different from what I normally read. They're kind of in like smaller paragraphs within the chapters, the different perspective, and you kind of read it and you think, oh, I wonder why I'm getting this character's perspective, or I'm wondering why they're given this thought on this, or that sort of thing. So it's very interesting, keeps you on your toes, keeps you guessing. I knew something almost traumatic happened, or it is traumatic happened in the book, but it's not what I expected. But still interesting to read about how the town dealt with this traumatic event, and you kind of could almost guess what some characters were going to feel and what others would feel, but then there was some little shock factors in there on how some characters acted and stuff, and I feel like once you get towards the end of the book you really feel that this town is real, these characters are real. And the stuff that's going on in this book is very real life based. So yeah, I very much enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the writing style. I definitely want to read more books by Frederick Backman, and I have actually put the second book in this series onto my October TBR, which if you want to see what books I have, then I have done a video on that as well, where the TBR jar picked my TBR for the month. But yeah, very interesting and very much enjoyed the story, and excited to continue the series to kind of see where everything goes and if any characters have any redeeming aspects to them and stuff like that. But yeah, very interesting and very much enjoyed this one, so 4 stars overall. The next book I read in the month of September, which also is a reason on to why I didn't read so many other books, because this was a hefty one, and that is Binding 13. I mean, this is like an 800-page book, so I feel like I've done well there. So yeah, I finally started the Boys of Tommen series. Ended up giving this 4.25 stars. Can't explain it because, like, I know it's 800 pages and people say that's really long for a romance, but it's just so bingeable. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, like, say it's 800 pages, how would you say that's bingeable? But just the story just flows so fast, and I was literally binging like 200 pages a day, and then I just didn't even realise that I'd read that many pages. So yeah, it was very bingeable, and I do recommend the series if you are interested in reading it. But I would check trigger warnings because there are some deeper themes and stuff in the book. Essentially, the story is about Johnny and Shannon, and they are actually the same characters in the second book as well, which I have started reading. And Shannon comes from a very dysfunctional family, we shall say, and she kind of has had a rough upbringing both at home and at school, and then Johnny is like this really popular guy who is on the rugby team at Tommen College, and then Shannon basically moves schools into Tommen College, and she has an incident where she meets Johnny on like the first day of school, and yeah, it kind of just goes from there. It is a slow burner, so just keep that in mind, obviously, because there's the next book as well to read. So yeah, but it is very bingeable. I did really enjoy it. I regret putting this off for so long, but I also felt that I read it at the right time, if that makes sense. Like, I wish I'd have read it sooner, but then I also feel it was the right time for me to read it. I was just very much in the mood for this book at that time. I am intrigued to obviously read the other character stories based on seeing them in the first book, and I now have seen that there is so many more books to come out in this series, so I kind of want to get up to date on it, so then when those new ones are coming out, I haven't got like a 12 book series to make my way through. I can just read them as they come out. So yeah, very much enjoyed this, and I am intrigued to know where it's going to go and what happens with Shannon and that sort of stuff, and then obviously go on to the other characters in the series. So yeah, very intrigued to see where this ends up. After reading that 800-page book, I kind of needed a little bit of a palate cleanser, so I decided to read Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage, which is the second one in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. Ended up giving this a 3.75 star. I didn't love it as much as the first book in the series, but still very much enjoyed. It was just so quick. I think I read it in like 2 days. It was just, yeah, really bingeable. If you're a fan of Elsie Silver and her style of writing, that found family aspect in her books, then I think you'll really enjoy this series, and they are really short books and very quick to read. Story follows Ada and Wes. So Wes is in the family that lives on Rebel Blue Ranch, and he basically wants to do up this old house that they have on there. So Ada is then an interior designer, so she gets hired to come and help revamp this house. Her and Wes have like a little bit of an incident just before she starts working there, and then they have to start working together. So it's kind of like a little bit of a forbidden-y type romance slash workplace romance, but obviously not in the normal setting, and also cowboy romance as well. So all of those tropes thrown into one. We continue in the series because, again, so intrigued to see the other characters in the series, and I just love the found family aspect. Like, that is just one of my favourite things in books. Continuing on the theme of found family aspect books, I read In the Weeds, which is the second one in the Love Like Farm series, and this story follows Beckett and Evelyn, who you do see in the first book. They basically had a little bit of it wasn't really a one night stand, it was more of like a 2-3 night stand at like this conference thing a few years ago, which you find out in the first book, and then Evelyn then comes to Love Like Farms in the first book again, as she is a social media influencer. She's kind of helping get this farm on the map sort of thing, helping them like with publicity and that sort of thing. So she bumps into Beckett again. So that all happens within the first book, but then in the second book the story follows obviously Beckett and Evelyn. She kind of needs a break, so she comes back to Love Like Farms, and he offers her to stay at his house, and it's basically just, yeah, forced proximity, them kind of working through that relationship, him wanting to be respectful of the time that she needs to take her break, but then they obviously still have that chemistry there from all those months or years ago whenever this had happened. I don't really know the timeline of it, to be honest. I did prefer the first one, to be honest, to this one, and I think I might prefer the others in the series again to this one, but still very much enjoyed it. It was a nice palate cleanser book. Again, ended up giving it 3.75 stars, the same as Swift and Saddled. I feel like I liked them both the same. Next book that I read was actually my book club's book of the month, and that was Daydream by Hannah Grace. I was very excited to read this one because, first of all, it's Henry's story, and second of all, I just love the whole series. Again, found family hockey aspect, like that's what you just get in hockey romances. There's just that found family aspect of their team, and it's just so cute. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I don't know if it's my favourite in the series. I still feel like I liked Icebreaker the best, to be honest, out of all of them, because there was just more hockey aspects in that book. Like, I actually do like ice hockey, so I do enjoy the hockey aspects of a hockey romance. I know some people just like the romancy part, but I actually do really enjoy the hockey talk, whereas this one didn't have too much of that. This story follows Henry and, I think you say Hallie, I think it's Hallie, I think that's how you pronounce it. Henry and Hallie, and Henry is struggling with his assignment. He's just basically struggling to write his assignments for this one class that he has. He doesn't struggle in his other classes, it's just this one particular one. And Hallie is basically a book girly, and she's offered to help him. She is a people pleaser. She is the eldest daughter in her family, and as being the eldest daughter myself, I feel her pain. Yeah, she's a people pleaser. She can't say no. She always wants to help someone if they're needing it, and basically she offers to help Henry with his assignment, and they kind of become friends from there, and then things kind of blossom romance wise later in the story. But I actually really enjoyed this book, so I just feel like there wasn't really much miscommunication between the characters. It was more their friendship grew, and then a romance grew from there, and there was just trust between the characters, and they were each other's go-to person, and it was just, yeah, it was just so sweet. I just loved it, which I knew I would, because Henry is just every girl's dream. He is just such a sweetie. He is the definition of if he wanted to, he would. So ended up giving it 4 stars, very much enjoyed, and very good book club pick of the month. Then the last book that I read in September was one that is highly anticipated, and that was A Court of Wings and Ruin, which is the 3rd one in the ACOTAR series. So I can't say too much about what happens in this book, obviously with it being the 3rd one, because you kind of have, well, you definitely have to read the other 2 to get to this point in the story, but there's more, let's say, actiony packed stuff happening rather than character-led storyline, because I feel like in the other 2 there is actiony stuff, but it's more character driven, whereas this one turns to more action storyline driven rather than characters, which I am still enjoying. I haven't enjoyed it as much as A Court of Mist and Fury, but I just feel nothing can top that book. Like, that is top tier Reese and Feyre. You just can't top it. It doesn't get any better than that. But I really now want to continue the series. I've really enjoyed this book. Again, like I say, I didn't enjoy it as much as The Court of Mist and Fury. That is infinity stars for me. This one is a close second though. It's 4.5 stars, I feel. Maybe even 4.75. But yeah, I just feel like some aspects of it kind of dragged out a little bit, but not too much. I'm still very much enjoying the story, and now really want to continue the rest of the series. I feel I am ready now. It's took me a while. It's took me like most of the year to get around to wanting to finish it. Very much enjoyed this book. I read it on my holiday. I know it's not really a holiday book, but I just wanted some dedicated reading time where I could just binge read this book. Those are all the books that I read in the month of September. Like I say, I'm so excited now to continue some of the series that I've started reading, and we have more dedicated reading time now with race season ending, so hopefully October will be jam-packed in the wrap-up. Fingers crossed. Thank you so much for watching today. Let me know whether you've read any of these books or just what you read in the month of September, and I'll see you in another one super soon. Bye guys.